This is KC Sports Tonight.
And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of KC Sports Tonight. Scott Reiss, Jared Koller in blue and red boxes as we get set to kick off a new week here at KCTV5. And it is Monday, so it is only fitting to hearken back to the weekend that we just experienced and give some love, Jared, to the K-State baseball team for sweeping through the Arkansas Regional and getting to the
Super Regional.
Super Regional, thank you. I'm blanking on my college baseball. Super Regional, second time in school history, right? First time in 11 years, I believe. And they've got a chance to go to a College World Series for the first time ever. You were here over the weekend. I know you were paying attention to these games, and you got to see the pitcher do a flip on the mound, which is super cool. But yeah, this is not a hotbed of local college baseball, this area of the country. So, and I don't say that disparagingly. They haven't had a lot of success in the postseason in recent years. In fact, I think there's only been one Missouri or Kansas baseball team in the College World Series this century, I believe, and that was Missouri State back in like 2003. So this would be a really big deal if they can get over the hump and get back next week. Yeah,
Missouri State is actually one of the better local programs as far as out of the two states. They do very well. They're a D1 school down there in Springfield. Mizzou obviously has tough sledding in the SEC where the level of baseball is obviously best in the country. But a little bit better than North as far as Nebraska's okay. They just won the Big Ten. Oklahoma schools are traditionally great, especially Oklahoma State. But yeah, Kansas and Kansas State and Mizzou have not been as nationally prominent, and that's why it's so great to see the Wildcats holding their own right now in big-time fashion, upsetting another school close to our area in Arkansas. They were the host in Fayetteville, and the Razorbacks got swept. This was the number 5 seed in the country for a reason. They are traditionally a baseball powerhouse led by manager Dave Van Horn, formerly at Nebraska. And K-State went in there and said, we don't care. We're going to win every game we play. They roll Louisiana Tech in Game 1. They beat the Razorbacks in a tight one in Game 2. And then the surprising team of the regional, Southeast Missouri State, the Red Hawks, well, they were happy to be in the regional final there, and K-State took care of business in easy fashion on Sunday. So credit to the Cats. College baseball is a cool sport, and if they beat Virginia this coming weekend, Scott, Omaha will turn into Manhattan North.
Yeah,
hopefully
right.
Just a couple-hour drive that's would be the shortest commute for any team in the CWS.
I was going to say, you think there might be a little home field advantage going on in Omaha if they get there?
Fan bases travel like crazy. It wouldn't surprise me if some other schools even outnumber them just because a lot of people go into Omaha every year, but at least there will be a lot of purple, which would be pretty cool.
It would be very cool. I've never been to the College World Series. That is on my list. It is on the bucket list. Have you been? You've been.
I have.
You
a
worked
couple
there,
years.
so you covered it
Yeah.
a couple times. Yeah. It just seems like such a super cool event. On so many levels, and the fans are awesome. The passion for the game is awesome.
Yeah, it's like Final Four-esque in the sense that you've got fan bases from different schools in the same town. That's why the Final Four is such a cool event, Scott, as you know, that you get 4, especially, I think back to the one in New Orleans recently where you had Kansas, Villanova, Duke, and North Carolina. You had all 4 blue blood fan bases descend on one city. That's why the Final Four is a unique event. For the Super Bowl World Series, it's 2 fan bases. Well, the CWS, you're getting 8 fan bases there. You're getting the powerhouses from the SEC, the dominant ones from the West Coast, whether it's, Oregon State or Stanford, then you also have the underdogs. And the nice thing about it is, fans buy tickets to see their team, but then they root for the underdog for the other games.
Of
so
course, yeah.
The stadium is packed with all kinds of different fan bases, but it creates a pretty cool neutral site atmosphere.
All right, and hopefully we will be talking more about this a week from today. Well, you won't be. You'll be on vacation, but hopefully – oh, no, you're back.
No,
you're
I'll
back.
be
All
here.
right. Well, hopefully you and I will be doing this a week from today and talking about K-State and more about what the College World Series means and this trip to Omaha. But first, as you mentioned, they've got to get past Virginia in the Super Regional. That'll be a best-of-3 series, which starts in Charlottesville on Friday. Next item on our agenda today – and this is a little different. I know your reaction was, well, why are we talking about this? It's not local. Justin Jefferson, Minnesota Vikings, new contract. You see the numbers on your screen. 4 years, $140 million. That's $35 million a year, which makes him the highest paid player in the NFL that is not a quarterback. Okay, fine. Here is first of all, your any thoughts on JJ getting this deal? I mean, no surprise, right? Worthy, certainly deserving.
Great player, well deserved.
Okay. The news was already percolating today about Tyreek Hill, who statistically was the best wide receiver in the NFL last year. And, well, now Tyreek's going to have to go back, and they better do right by him, and they better renegotiate his deal. And this is the same conversation we had a year ago with Patrick Mahomes. And I'm sure that I railed to you behind closed doors on this, but now I will bring it into the public forum. I don't understand why Justin Jefferson now becoming the highest paid receiver in football means that the Dolphins under some obligation to renegotiate Tyreek Hill's contract so that he can once again jump Justin Jefferson. That to me makes no sense. It is obvious that whoever is the highest paid guy today will not be the highest paid guy next year or the year after because that's how it works. And the next guy to sign a big contract is going to get more. And the guy after that to sign again is going to get more. It bothers me that the world somehow owes, and I felt the same way last year with Patrick Mahomes. Best quarterback in the NFL? Yes. Worthy of the biggest contract? Absolutely. But you know what? He's not going to be the next guy to sign a quarterback contract, Jalen Hurts, whoever it is going to pass Mahomes. Do you have to renegotiate their contract every single time somebody else signs a deal? I don't get it. I don't understand why it matters, even to these guys, whether they're the highest paid or the second highest paid. Once you are the highest and you get that and you have that, the bragging rights, whatever it does, feeds the ego of saying, I am the highest. But right now, Justin Jefferson is the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. No one can ever take that away from him, that he got this deal and that at this moment he is number one. So if he falls to number 2 or number 3 or number 4 on that pecking list over the next few years, who cares? And why do the teams have a responsibility to constantly renegotiate these contracts that are already so stupidly lucrative and more money than God? I don't get it. So that's my rant. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's just that's the human nature of a wide receiver position, especially that, likes to at many times be the center of attention, and you got to be confident to be a wide receiver. And I think that Tyreek Hill thinks he's the best wide receiver in football.
And he may be.
And he wants to be paid like that 100% of the time. I think
which is completely unrealistic. Because if he gets bumped up now, does he have to get bumped up again next year if A.J. Brown gets a new – again, where does it end?
I don't know.
Does Patrick Mahomes need a new contract next year with the Chiefs if somebody else passes him?
But
do we have to do that again?
If Patrick Mahomes goes to Brett Veach and Clark Hunt and says, hey, I want to be the highest paid quarterback, are they going to tell him no? Should they tell him no?
Yes.
I don't know. I think keeping...
They should tell him we made you were once, then we did right by you again. And to be clear, I don't think Patrick Mahomes was saying that last year. This was a narrative from everybody else that, now we've got to bump up Mahomes.
Happy.
I think Mahomes is fine. I think he's good. And I don't think he would complain.
But probably not. But if for whatever reason, if he wasn't happy with his current deal...
I guess that's my thing. How could you possibly, in what universe can you be even mildly unhappy with what you know what?
It's not as much about money as it's about respect. I mean, that's where they want the respect.
And I guess that's my point. There is you should not in any way feel disrespected by what is simply the way the system works, and that there's always going to be the next guy making more. There's no disrespect. You signed it. You got it. Okay, the respect for Justin Jefferson comes today. He's not respected any less a year from now if somebody else signs a 4-year, $142 million contract. That's no lack of respect on Justin Jefferson. It's just, the cap went up, there's more money. Anyway, so to me, the whole thing is silly, and the fact that there was so much chatter today about the memes and this is Tyreek Hill when he finds out he's not the highest paid guy. Like, come on. To me, it's absurd. So anyway, had to get that out. I feel better now. Okay, let's move on to the Royals. Speaking of feeling better, things were looking bleak.
I mean, even if they lost Sunday, they'd still be on pace to go 93 and 69.
I don't mean bleak in the big picture. I mean bleak for the weekend.
Yes,
right? They
were about a bleak week.
A bleak week. They were about to be swept for the first time this season. And, they had come back, and we talked about this, I think, at the tail of last week. You come back, and almost get over the hump in the ninth inning several times in 1 week. And that's hard to do. I mean, it's hard to score multiple runs in the ninth inning ever against, ostensibly the top relief pitcher for the other team. And the Royals have made a habit of it now, but they hadn't gotten over the hump and they hadn't tied the game. They hadn't sent it to extras. They hadn't won. And they did it yesterday. And I think that was a big win. I think not just a game in the standings, but I think it, they lost 3 out of 4 and 2 out of 3. All of a sudden, you would have lost 6 of 7 or 7 of 8 going back to. I mean, that's a legit, stretch of rough patch of baseball, which is not what you want heading into what right now to this point is the biggest series of this season. You got 3 games, against Cleveland, so I think yesterday was huge on multiple levels. It made me feel a lot better as a fan seeing him get 1 out of 3. Especially when you consider now they've got Michael Wacha out, and so you've got Daniel Lynch needs to step back into the rotation at least in the short term, which he has done capably twice. We'll see how that rolls now that he's back for a third start this week, and I assume they'll get Brady Singer back from the illness this week as well. But I don't know. I think that was a big deal coming back, and I think there was a lot of a bigger sigh of relief than normal about them winning that game yesterday, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it would have been the first time they've been swept all year. It would have been the first time they've lost 4 in a row all year. So here we are on June 3rd or whatever, if you're listening to this later, today is June 3rd, and the Royals have still yet to be swept this season. They've still yet to lose 4 games in a row. So whenever the first time that happens, Scott, well, the sky will fall, okay? But it didn't, because on Sunday they did what they have done pretty much all year, and that is flat out fight. I mean, it's in Kansas City sports DNA for the last decade now, because the 2014 and 15 Royals, what was their trademark ability? It was the fact that they could be trailing and say, I don't care. We are the better team. We may be down 4 runs. We are going to still win this game despite trailing by 4 in the 8th inning. They did that multiple times. Then the Chiefs picked up that baton and have trailed by double digits in 3 Super Bowls that they've gone on to win. Scott, that's not normal, yet that is the expectation here in Kansas City, and this Royals baseball team has very much followed suit. Not always finishing the deal. You allude to the fact that, hey, they had the game-tying run on base in 3 of their last 4 losses entering the Padres series, so they were making it competitive. But, Scott, on Friday, they were down 11-3 entering the 9th inning.
Yeah.
They just had Nick Lofton, a position player, pitch in the top half of the 9th. They were giving up on paper, but not in that lineup's mind. They come back and force the Padres to use their closer, who ends up almost giving up the lead, just a couple feet shy from Nelson Velasquez. But that was an important game to show fight, because then the Padres didn't have their closer to use on Sunday. Nelson Velasquez comes back up, and this time he does tie the game. And, Scott, that is why I won't just go, oh, it doesn't matter how they lose, if they lose 7-1 or 7-6. No, it does matter when you show that fight, because, one, it's taxing the other team more, and it's giving your lineup confidence that even though you're down, you can still come back and make it competitive, and they've consistently done that for this entire season. Their numbers, Scott, the 3rd time through the order and against other teams' bullpens, are phenomenal. They get better as the game goes on, and I think that's a great trait to have.
I think that's a really good point about making the leverage arms for the Padres work more than they needed to, or they thought they needed to, on Saturday, unavailable on Sunday, and Matsui is asked to close, and we saw what happened. Velasquez gets to him, and it was convincing too. It's not like this was a bloop and a walk, and no, I mean they hit the baseball. It was a convincing comeback yesterday, and obviously Velasquez with the big blow. It's crazy because his numbers still aren't great from a batting average standpoint, from a StatCast metrics standpoint, but he's showing some clutch. And, to have a guy who last year showed that ability to just hit home runs when you needed home runs. Now, the games didn't matter last August and September. He hit a lot of big home runs in a lot of games.
Well,
and we're seeing it again now. I mean, these are big hits in big spots.
But even then, I disagree with that comment. The games did matter last August and September because they were fighting then. A lot of those hitters are on this team again. And I think last year, from July 28th on, they were almost a 500 ball club. They've carried that over into this year, in part because they fought against some really good teams. They went down and beat the Astros, who were en route to the playoffs after going to the World Series. Like, they beat some good teams late last year, and even when they weren't beating those teams, they were in it late. A lot of their losses were close losses. A lot of their losses were because of a bad bullpen. But I think even those games that, quote-unquote, didn't matter were having big moments for Nelson Velasquez, for Vinny Pasquantino, for Bobby Witt Jr. His walk-off grand slam against the Twins spurred the stretch, and now I think Bobby Witt Jr. is a better player today because of that experience. Listen, if you want Nelson Velasquez to be your cleanup hitter, I think you're in trouble, but he's a streaky enough hitter with enough pop in that bat that I think having him in the third half of your batting order is an asset because he can run into one at any point in time, whether that's game-tying triple, his first triple of the year, a rare pinch hit, game-tying ninth-inning RBI triple. But I think he's definitely a valuable player, and people were calling to have him sent down not too long ago, so it's good to see him pick his game up a little bit.
Yeah, so big, like I said, I think big collective sigh of relief yesterday. Nice to see leave home on a high note. And now you go to Cleveland, and I don't think a lot of people, when the season started, had Royals at Guardians circled on their calendar as one of the big series early in this baseball season. But here we are, and you've got 3 games between the top 2 teams in the American League Central. You see the spread. It's 4 games now. KC was a game and a half behind Cleveland for about a week and a half.
Yeah.
And then, the Royals hit a rough patch last week. The Guardians have kept winning. But we've also talked, repeatedly about Cleveland's strength of schedule in May, which was very, very low. Now they've got to play some better teams going forward, starting with the Royals tomorrow. So how big a deal, and I know you're all about the 162 games and the sky's not falling, and if they get swept, the sky still isn't falling, and they're still on pace for a playoff spot and all that jazz. Games in June matter just as much as games in September when all is said and done. So that said, how important is this week's series to you?
Scott, you want me to have some takes, right? You don't want me to, hey, I agree with you, Scott. I think this is the most overrated series in a long time for the Royals. I do not think it matters half as much as everyone here does, because at the end of the day, the Royals' season success this year is not measured by whether or not they finish ahead of the Guardians in the American League Central. It is not Central or bust. The wild card exists for a reason, and it has for many decades. Would it be great for the Royals to get ahead of the Guardians? Sure. But, Scott, what were you doing in 1985? How long ago was that?
That was 39 years ago.
Okay, so a little bit before my time. Since that point, wherever young Scott Reiss was, the Royals have made the playoffs 2 times. 2 times in 38 years, okay? I don't care how they make the playoffs, okay? They've only made it 9 times as a franchise. The Kansas City Royals have been have played 55 seasons before now. They have made the playoffs 9 times. Get in. That's all that matters. They went to the World Series Game 7 on a wild card team. I think this series matters just as much as a series against the Mariners, the Astros, the Rangers, the Orioles, the Twins. I think, does it matter more than a series against the Padres? Yes. Do you want to beat the Guardians? Yes. Will it be disappointing if they get swept? Yes. I don't care how they get in the playoffs. When you lose 106 games last year, Scott, I'm not going to be at all disappointed at, they're the 5 seed. No, it would be one of the greatest turnarounds in sports history. And so I'm just not going to put too much pressure on this series that in the grand scheme of things, I don't think is the end-all be-all that suddenly it has. I mean, even when the Royals were on that winning streak, everybody's like, oh yeah, they're winning 8 in a row, but Boy, so are the Guardians. Who cares? The Royals are winning 8 in a row and having this fabulous season on pace for 90-plus wins. I don't care about the other teams around them. Keep taking care of business on the whole, and things will play itself out.
Wow. So I love the take. I love the passion. I don't have a problem with the sentiment of perspective and that you lose 106 games. Getting in the playoffs is, an almost unimaginable one-season turnaround, and you should be happy with getting in. I agree with that. Here's my problem with the argument, however. You want to the goal is always to not just get into the playoffs. The goal is to ultimately win a World Series, but to go as deep as you possibly can in the postseason. And by definition, you are in a better spot if you have a higher seed in the playoffs than if you have a lower seed.
Yep.
And if you have a chance to win your division, you're in a better position than getting in as a wild card. Easier path, more home games, what have you. So for me, I don't think about this now as I'm just happy to be in a playoff position because, frankly, it's June, and I want to win as many games as possible to get into the best possible playoff position I can, right? And I know you do too, because obviously even to get in as a wild card, you still got to play good baseball the rest of the year. It's not like, well, we've clinched that, so we can kind of kick our feet back. And I know that's not what you're saying, but I think it matters not because if they get into a wild card spot and don't win the division, it's going to be some grand letdown, but because the more cushion you have, the more options you have, and winning the division is one of those options, the better off you are when you get to September. And there are teams that only have one avenue to the playoffs in September, and that is to win the division because they're not going to have enough victories to get in as a wild card. Right now, that's not the problem for the Royals. But you know what? Who says it might not be come August or September? A lot of folks predicted before the season, pretty much across the board, would have said, well, there's not going to be a wild card team from the American League Central. You're going to have to win your division to get in. So I still think that mentality matters, and that's why I do think that it's simply factual that if you look at the odds of everything that you want to do, these games are more important because they're division games. Are they more important because they're against Cleveland as opposed to Minnesota? Maybe not necessarily. If you believe the Twins are going to be ultimately better, you could make the argument that those are equally important. And, are they more important than the Chicago White Sox? Well, that's a different, obviously it's a different argument. But I do believe that to this point in the season, this is the most important series of the year, just like I believe that the 4-game set in Minnesota to that point in the season was the most important series of the year for the same reason. So that would be my comeback.
I agree mostly with what you said. Yes, I think Royals fans should want to do well in this series. I do think it's an important series, but to the degree in which it's being heralded as a make-or-break series.
No, it's certainly not make-or-break.
How they do in this series will not change my opinion on the team.
That's fine.
Whatsoever. But I don't think many people – I think people are like, hey, this is a landmark. I will judge this team based on this series. And, hey, that's the pressure of baseball. And yes, there's benefits. You want to be the 3 seed instead of the 4 seed because you're hosting that series. But, Scott, what's the difference between a 3 and a 4 seed right now? It's – home field advantage. That's it.
Yeah. Well, okay, but that's it.
That'd be nice.
To me, that matters.
No, it does matter. But to the point in which this series is so much greater than what's come before, what's come after, I just don't think it's a huge deal. But no, it'd be great for the Royals to take care of business. If you can get 2 out of 3, I think you take that and run.
Let me ask you this, and again, this is a hard hypothetical picture to paint because there's so many moving parts. But let's say instead of June 3rd, it's September 3rd.
Yeah. Then
you're 3 games or 4 games back of Cleveland, and you're in good shape for the wild card spot.
Oh, then it's far more important. And to your point, hey, this series counts the same as it does in September. Exactly.
Right.
All games are created equal.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm totally fine with, yes, I'm not saying it's not important. I just think the degree in which the pressure and hype and expectations that's being put on this series, I think in part because just they haven't played the Guardians yet.
Right.
With that said, if they go out and sweep the Guardians or something like that, I think people will be really bought in. So I think it's a great opportunity. In my opinion, I'm coming out of this as a win-win. If they win 2 out of 3 or sweep, I'm going, hey, look at the Royals go. And if they get swept or win only 1 out of 3, I'm saying, hey, I told you it didn't matter. So you know what? I'm going to be happy on Friday regardless, okay?
Hey, that's fair. And I will say this. How cool is it that it is being overhyped? How cool is it that we've got a series between the Royals and the Guardians in June, and there's overhype for this series?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, and the great thing about it, Kansas City's big money free agent ace, Seth Lugo, gets to start it, and, then Brady Singer's back in the fold, and listen, it's
Cy Lugo on the hill going for win number 10.
Yeah,
tomorrow.
No, it's a good it's a good time for baseball in Kansas City. I'm excited. Granted, I was excited for Royals baseball games last year when no one cared and they were losing a lot of games, so it doesn't take a whole lot for me to get excited. But no, it should be a fun, important series. So I don't mean to downplay it like that. I just wanted to give a little listen. You go ask a random Joe on the street, hey, is this an important series? They're going to say yes. So I'll give you a little nuance to it. How about that?
That's fair enough. Always love the nuance from Jared Koller. And I like the fact that the national networks are going to be paying attention. They're going to hype this up. And I guess that's what I mean. How cool is that people in New York and California and all points in between are looking at the series and saying, hey, this might be the biggest series on the baseball docket this week.
I don't care
That's cool.
I don't care about that.
See, I think it's cool. I like
No, you're right.
I think it is cool.
We still didn't get an answer on where Scott was in 1985.
I was in high
I'm a little
school.
conserved. Oh, all right. Damn.
Well, I was in, I guess I was in 8th grade.
Look at that.
I was graduating 8th grade.
Hot damn.
Yeah. So
2 playoff trips since then, Scott. A lot has happened since then.
Indeed. Indeed. Oh, if we had time to go through step by step.
Yes.
All right. We'll cut it there. I'm going to go get ready for the 6 o'clock news. You go get ready to do whatever it is you do for the rest of the day.
Get ready to do a James Shields salute.
And, we'll be back tomorrow. KC Sports Tonight. Always streaming at 5:30 on the weekdays and still on TV with that guy right there. That guy? Yep. There he is in that box right there on Saturday and Sunday. We will see you tomorrow. All right. Have a good one.